Hey, what's up? So, last day of this hackathon, buildathon, whatever you want to call it. I don't like hackathon because I'm not really hacking a lot. But man, it's been a hard one. I'm not going to lie. So, obviously, the point of this is to really get deep into work, but like in a almost how should I put it? In almost an animalistic way. I don't know. It depends on how you work. But for me, it's really helpful to not have 8 hours. Like, really helpful. It is helpful to just, like, I slept on this couch. My laptop, iPad, and other laptop are all right there with all of my headphones and all my wires and bottles of water and whatever. Like, you just kind of working through it. You're working through it. And sometimes it takes a long time to work through stuff. And so I mentioned in the first video, my goal was to spend like 18 to 20 hours a day working. And I'm really close to that. I'm about 17 and a half, 18. Actually, no, I'm probably about 19 actually, because I stayed up till 4 this morning and woke up at about 6:30. So there are a lot of things that you gain from this, but on the downside, if you ever try it, you also lose some. And so usually when these things happen, like I have a come down. And so I've been trying to prep myself and everything to basically crash um, tonight, hang out with the family for as much as I can. But it's one of those things that, you really need to kind of ease your way back into it. You need to go on walks. You got to maybe take a drive and just kind of get outside. Maybe have a meeting with a friend, a coffee meeting that isn't even work related, or go to, I might go to my grandparents' house, who live kind of close to us, about an hour or so drive. And so you kind of have to manage your health, your mental health on this type of thing, because when you're building, you're literally looking at code for 16 hours a day, 18 hours a day, and that is not my normal way of work. Normal way of work is, somewhere between 12 to 14. And so getting almost 60 hours worth of work in over the last 3 days means that I have done a week and a half worth of work in 3 days than most people do in a week. So I've learned a ton, and that is the most important thing. You're basically working to learn, so you're running through hurdles. I am so much better at using OpenAI Codex after working with it for the last, I don't know, like 18 hours or so. I know how my workflow is set up. I have a pretty good idea of how we're going to do iterations. I also have a pretty good idea of how we're going to build products in the future, because we basically built 4 products from scratch this weekend. And when I say products, I'm not talking MVP. I'm not talking one-shot vibe coding. I mean, in my opinion, production grade. I'm going to be able to sell this to someone type of product. Or I can sell the product itself and someone can buy it and start their own company. And so in doing that, you're running into a lot of hurdles, but you're also learning how to build production grade product at speed, so that eventually we'll scale it out and we'll bring some people on for Built by Six. That's a program that we're working on in the background, hopefully in time for everyone to come off the Bolt hackathon, so I could just cherry pick the best people, the people who made the best products. Is kind of my plan. And so with that, I'm kind of learning my own workflow so that I can help other people develop a good workflow and also understand a cost structure. I know that I could not have done what I did this weekend without paying $200 for Claude Code, or sorry, the Anthropic Max Claude plan, because I needed unfettered access to code. And when I say unfettered, I mean it's working right now in the background over there on something that is 26 files long, and I've already built. Let me put it this way: when I started this past week, I think I had something like 300 to 500 commits. Over the weekend, I have now 500 more. I'm over 1,000 commits now. And so my GitHub profile looks crazy. Now that's because with OpenAI, they do pull requests for every single thing you do if you want to change anything in the Codex. And I would encourage you, If you are building and you want to build quickly, use Codex before they start pricing for it. Because right now, every time I press the button, I was like, is this gonna still be free? I even looked it up. I was like, they got to be charging me. There's no way that this is free. I've probably written like easily like 50,000 to 75,000 lines of code this weekend. And so when you're doing that, what I'm basically doing is having Claude write all of. So I'm basically working with ChatGPT to build out kind of like the idea maze and go through that, build out the MVP and kind of work through not the MVP, but build out the feature set and like work through that and figure out what I want to do there. And then I take that, get an implementation kind of Gem Prompt Framework doc, put that into Claude, and then set up everything on Bolt, and then set everything up on the back end with Railway and some of the other tools that I use. And from that point, I'm basically letting Claude like write a whole product stack, which is quite insane to watch. Like right now, like I said, it's running through 30 files right now for one feature of a product. And I have both laptops up running 2 projects each. So each I have 2 windows open on each laptop, and each window has Claude for that product or project, has OpenAI for that project. It has a Codex for both the front end and the back end of that project. It has Bolt open, and it has both GitHub repositories open for 4 products. So I'm going back and forth, and I have luckily there's a rolling chair here. So I was going back and forth, like literally sliding down the table, trying to do stuff, and then talking on my phone to OpenAI, to ChatGPT to like update some of the feature sets that I was going to do. And so it has been really tough, but like I said, I've learned a lot about what it takes to build these things that I'm trying to build. That's one of my partner asked me why I didn't join the hackathon for Bolt, and one, it was kind of like, meh, they didn't like. I actually asked them months ago to give me free credits to run a hackathon in my city, and kind of like crickets. So I was like, I don't need to join. Plus, also, I kind of have more important things to do with what I'm trying to build, so we can make some money. And so that leads me into what happens now. What happens now is I'm going to continue building out these feature sets that I've already decided were going to be on there. That was the point of having like the implementation guide that I worked with, or the feature, the Gem Prompt Framework doc. If you've been watching these videos for a while, that was the whole point of having that, is so that I would have a capped feature set. I'm not going outside of that. Now, sometimes Claude will say like, hey, in order to do that, like for instance, I was working on some features that I wanted to be kind of modular in a way. I'm not gonna tell you what it is, but in that discussion, I was like, oh yeah, well, I saw, Claude, that you mentioned this one thing. That's not how I want it to be like later on. In fact, I want it to be tiered, and I want to be able to adjust it like as needed. So I need an admin panel somewhere. And so it was kind of saying, well, in order to do that, you kind of also need the scaffolding to be able to like change tiers based on features. So you need a feature tier billing connection point, which was like 10 files from both the back end and the front end to link it all together. So now when I want to move a feature in and out of a tier set, I can just do it with like a slide of a button. Or if I want to add a new feature, I can build a new feature and then just roll it into any of the tiers I want. So let's say that we get requests for a feature from a bunch of our let's say ultra premium users. Well, we might build that feature in and then slide it under the tier below and kind of tell the people, hey, like if you guys want this feature, you need to increase your usage or we're going to move it back up. So there are these things that you can do that I didn't even know was possible or was necessary, that all came from working on this stuff for 60 hours over the last couple of days. And so that's one thing. What was another thing? I forgot. There's so many things that I've learned now that I'm like, oh yeah, no, that's a great idea. Oh, built a custom usage rate margin thing. which is essentially, some of these tools that we're building will use OpenAI and we'll offer it like kind of at cost for the token. So you'll pay for the platform, and then we'll give you the tokens where you just see the live consumption of OpenAI or Anthropic or whatever we use for the models on the back end. You'll just see your consumption go up. So you're basically paying for those consumption like all out of pocket, and we're not making any money on that. And we charge a platform fee and some add-on fees for other things. That's how one product will work. Another product, it works way better if we don't charge the platform fee, but we charge margin on the tokens. So how do we do that? Well, we first have to map out all of the models and their current costs. So you have to put them into tables. Then you have to basically build a calculator to run so that kind of what your margins are at all time, and have that calculator inform what your feature costs are, which inform your cost analysis on the back end. Well, I didn't have to do that because I built a tool that lives in an admin panel that I can just go in and go, oh, well, it seems like more people are using this feature and using this model. If we want to increase usage, or if we see that is going to be a selling point for other people, let's go ahead and decrease that margin to 5% or 2%, or make it at cost and increase another thing that's not really used that much, another feature that's not really used that much, or let's make more margin off the O1 writing, or let's make more margin off of image generation. So we can like up and down it, which I didn't even know that. I guess in theory, I thought that you could do it. I just didn't know that you actually could do it. And that has been really fun to learn, is pushing myself and the limits of the code and these platforms to figure out like what's actually possible. Because a lot of the things that I built over this weekend, I haven't seen anyone talk about. And I'm rolling them multiples into particular products. So if we're talking about like a moat, it's going to be just imagination and being willing to be wrong a lot, which I was wrong so much this weekend. And so now from here on out, this next week, we got to build in all the Stripe integrations and everything. I know that Bolt has it built in, but it's not suitable for how complex the products that we're building are. And then we are going to work on, so we got to do Stripe integrations for everything. We got to wrap up the product specs and everything. We got to basically build like sales scripts, marketing scripts, cold email, cold DM, like all the outbound stuff, but also have the lead magnets. And then we got to build the landing page copy and the landing pages as well. And so, and the doubles, obviously, that's probably gonna take the longest time because we got to think of basically 100 questions that someone might ask, so that if they're having a conversation with a double, it's unlikely they're going to stump our doubles. But yeah, no, it's been a great weekend, and I didn't record like basically any of the videos from the last week or from the weekend. I recorded a couple, but by and large, I thought it would be kind of boring to just see me bang my head against the wall on code for 4 different products. And then also on top of that, like when you're doing that, I thought about having a camera over the shoulder and realized like I would expose my API codes like every 3 seconds. And so didn't want to do that. But hey, I can't wait to show everyone what we're up to. I think it's going to be, I think it could be cool. Like for me personally, I think it could be really cool as someone who's never been able to build products to now, like I built almost 4 in a weekend, that we're going to sell a week from now, not like get customers. So, we'll see how it goes.